Welcome, friends of an awakening world. This is a commentary on the Yogasutra based on the recognition of your true self, based on the 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 hopefully your own orientation for studying any of the traditions, what this is actually about the deeper finding of what you inherently are. And this is so important to continuously actually stress because it is really a finding. There has to be this inner discovery and this inner unveiling and this inner revelation of what you are. And these findings are these deeply touching findings when you are recognizing that you are not this body mind, when you are recognizing that what you are is unified, when you are recognizing that something is inherently one in all of us and all of life, when you are recognizing that a world comes alive in you. These are all potential findings for you to potential realizations that you can have on this journey inward, and they obviously shift how you perceive life, how you perceive yourself and the world, and your contribution then starts to shine from a different wisdom. And Patanjali's Yogasūtra is one of these ancient texts that talks in such detail about the self, but also about life being lived in this recognition, and what kind of practices or orientations or ways are conducive when you are on this trajectory, when you want to find out, when this is something that is also deeply coming from inside as a urge from your soul. That's hopefully why you are listening to this today. And the sutta I want to talk about today is 241. It is Sattva Shuddhi Saumanasya Ekagraya Indriya Jaya Atma Darshana Yogyattvani Cha. And it talks about Sattva, that is the pure mind, basically the stillness, returning to stillness again and again and again. And this, what you are as consciousness, needs to be discovered. It is really something that has to be found, apart from you knowing this already, knowing that you are consciousness, knowing that you are the divine. Apart from this conviction, it needs to be also this finding. And with the stillness, it's oftentimes for a long time that you are trying to still the mind, or that actually almost everyone, because again, it's deeply prompted by the soul. Actually, I have to be careful. Most people enjoy silence. Maybe not being alone in stillness so much, even though this for some people also already is something that they actually deeply enjoy. But many people go on vacation someplace where it is silent. And when you're sitting down, in the beginning, it can be that you want your mind to be silent, that you're hoping that there's less going on in your head, that this endless chatter isn't there, or that the thoughts are not just entering your screen, but the stillness that you can discover, and that is maybe sometimes easier for a more still mind, or at times when the mind is more quiet. That stillness is already there. It isn't caused. It is also not practiced. It is independent actually of what the mind, what is happening within the mind. So you want to discover yourself on the level of awareness. And that awareness, once you come into touch with it and actually investigate it, you find it is a stillness that is untouched by thought. It stands apart from thought. It isn't enmeshed in thought at all. And it is a stillness that is uncaused. All of these qualities that the self actually has, they're all uncaused. There isn't, and so it's a completely different paradigm. You come into touch with something that's actually of a completely different paradigm. It's not caused. The happiness that you can discover is uncaused. It is independent of circumstantial reality. But what it does, the more you come into contact, the more you know what you are, the more you abide as that, the more this is simply clear to you, it comes stronger to the foreground of your experience. And then every day is nice. There's a happiness that is just present. It is just there. That's independent of what happens in your day. And to the opposite, then all the things that are mundane or boring, what you usually discard, they are suddenly then also exciting, they also cause happiness, because the happiness is no longer bound to anything actually. So first one is sattva. It is that stillness, coming back to that stillness, coming back to awareness again and again, for you to rest in that and to rest as that, and to come into touch with that stillness that is untouched, and that offers a different form of peace, of contentment, of stillness also, even amidst thoughts. So he says sattva, stillness, shuddhi, cleanliness, purity. And what happens as you're on this path and awareness becomes more prominent to you as what you are, this knowing starts to deepen. There's actually much more happening inside of awareness. There's a lot bubbling up. Your identifications are bubbling up. What is held in the subconscious is bubbling up. The unified field is starting to bubble up, which you come into contact with this. So there's a lot actually happening within the mind's frame. It is that you are starting to just observe. And because awareness is heightened, and this observation that you are capable of, and this widened observation also, not just of your own mind, is heightened, there's much more that starts to bubble up. And so he says, shuddhi, cleanliness, purifying. It's again and again, actually, no matter what bubbles up, when you are looking, uh, when you're glimpsing beyond the veil, when you see the unified essence. There's not everything is negative. There's also lots of stuff that is quite expansive and interesting within spirituality or within spiritual experience. The contents, what all is perceivable on a more subtle layer. But at the same time, Shuddhi is also purification. It's always creating this kind of distance to whatever appears and however interesting it is to also let that go and to just be curious what one is interested in or enmeshed in or identified with. And then he says, Saumanasya, it is contentment. It's also, these are all things that actually also go a little bit against the grain of what is the conditioned self, what is the small self, what causes us suffering. And a part of what causes us suffering is a continuous discontentment that is actually just also like a seed in the mind that continuously stipulates that whatever is and whatever you have isn't yet enough, whether that's yourself or whether that's objects or whether that's entertainment, has these different nuances for different people. But Saumanasya is actually the opposite. It is the contentment. And this contentment can obviously be practiced on a relative level, but again, the best way is to really purely come back to yourself, to come back to stillness, because that what you actually are, if it is allowed more prominently in your practice, it means it is allowed more prominently in your life, and it infuses by itself. And it infuses then also this happiness, this causeless contentment, this causeless satisfaction to just spread and become more prominent. Indriya Jaya, Ekagraya, before that, it means to be one-pointed. And this is probably one of the most difficult things in our modern day life, to stay one-pointed in your interest towards the self. If you want to realize the self, there has to be this really one-pointedness towards it. You have to invest yourself in this. It isn't something that, oftentimes how we are brought up and what is conditioned is to have one foot in many things at the same time. And you can have a foot here and a foot there and a foot there and try this and try that. But ekagraya is really one pointed. It doesn't mean one tradition or one way or one thing. It just means you have to be pointed towards discovering what you are. You have to be one pointed. You have to want this. This has to be the most important thing for you if you actually want to realize the self. It cannot be done if that's just like a little hobby on the side. You have to discover, you have to be an explorer inside. This has to be your primary focus, what this is actually about, how to find the self. There has to be a certain intensity towards it. You have to burn for it. You have to have that certain fire that wants to find out, that wants to be one with the divine, that wants to know itself, that wants to find truth. It has to be stronger as a fire than any other desire that you have. Has to be really, really, really strong. And ekagraya means really to be one-pointed. Indriya Jaya. To win, Jaya, victory over what? Indriya, the senses. This is a deep knowing into what is perceivable. This world of what is perceivable, Prakriti. To know what this is actually like experientially. Something is perceived by the senses. And it keeps the mind in a certain continuous engagement, which is okay, but also you in this continuous identification with this world of form, identification with what is ephemeral, identification with what displays itself, keeps you in a continuous engagement with it actually. And then Atma Darshana, you can see Darshana, Atma, the self, the deeper essence, Yogyadvani Cha. You have the capacity, like if this is your gamut, stillness, purifying, continuously discriminating yourself against what is perceivable, being one-pointed, really investing in finding out what is the self. Find a way, like have something, some practices, or some spiritual discipline, something that is this reminder for you, whether you go in an ashram, whether you join a membership, whether you do a course, whether anything that helps you also with this kind of focus, keeping this focus for yourself alive, and starting to see how the senses work, what the senses suggest, and that all of it is also not you. Discriminate yourself against what is perceivable. And what is perceivable isn't just the sense perception as such, but the whole thing that connects with it. The sense perception and your opinion, or your interpretation of what is perceived. That is also perceivable. There's a deepening then, a further stepping back into it. And all of these, and also to this contentment with what is, starting to actually already perceive the oneness. Everything is arising in yourself. Capital S, self, in your wider self. Knowing this life comes from you as the infinite. Coming to learn also this unified display, and the love that it comes out of, the love that you actually are, that allows everyone. Just also this sometimes, to have this very, very touching experience, inner experience, when you see that all perception comes alive in your awareness. The world comes alive in your awareness. And to also start to observe in your own environment, in your own, wider community, wherever it is, but to see this display of form in its perfection, how everyone learns from it, something that you can actually also see, experience, find in life. and to see how this love allows everyone to have their distinct experiences so they learn, they grow, and how this works not just by one person, but by this conglomerate of life, this display of form. And to have this contentment with life as it is, as it shows up for you. This deep trust also in yourself as the divine, to know exactly what is actually conducive for you distinctly. And so this sutta gives you these pointers. Already says you will have a glimpse. All these kind of things actually already point you. Stillness, the stillness, coming back to stillness, but coming back to a stillness that isn't caused. Purification also happening by itself, by this continuous continuous bubbling up of identifications, of mind stuff, of mental ideas, and a continuous purifying in the sense of discriminating yourself against it. The contentment, coming to know actually a contentment again that isn't caused, doesn't come from anything. It is also the revelation of what you are, intrinsically happy, uncaused happy. And to know this also, to know there is something that is actually happy as it is, nothing needed for it. And to become one pointed towards consciousness, towards that awareness, and to have victory over the senses. All that is actually gamut also. That's why it's Atma Darshana. It gives you a glimpse of the self. The self doesn't need, it isn't just not enmeshed with the senses, but it doesn't even need the senses. What you are is pure awareness. This awareness of what you are is not bound to the senses, not even to know things. And that's why it's also a completely different paradigm, because you come into contact with that part of yourself that is truly boundless. It doesn't need the senses to know things. It doesn't need the senses even to operate. It doesn't need the body to operate. It already is. It works on a different plane, you could say. It doesn't hold the same stipulations that come from this identification with this body mind and within the senses. All that we deem we know comes from the senses. And what you are is completely independent, even in its operation, from the senses, from time and space. It doesn't need all of it. So that's a beautiful sutta that also helps you with these distinct markers as glimpses of the self, but also as what can be practiced, what points you to, and what is also extremely helpful, practicing contentment, even on a relative level, all these different aspects of the self. Thank you for being here and for listening. Namaste.